The car sat in the corner of the auction hall like something nobody had bothered to throw away yet. Dust covered the hood in a thin gray film. The paint had blistered and peeled along the fenders, and the handwritten lot tag dangling from the side mirror read $5,000 to $8,000, no reserve. Nobody stood near it. Nobody even glanced at it. And then Giselle Hartwell, the CEO of Hartwell Prestige Auctions, the most powerful name in high-end estate sales in New York, walked past it, looked down at the man crouching beside it with a small flashlight in his hand, and said 4 words that everyone in earshot heard clearly. Scrap metal, no value. The man in the worn work jacket didn't stand up. He didn't argue. He just kept looking at the undercarriage with the calm, unhurried attention of someone who already knew something the room did not. What did Lucas Grant see in that car that an entire auction house full of experts missed? The answer is worth $8 million, and it starts with a lesson his father taught him a long time ago. Lucas Grant loaded the last of his tools into the passenger footwell of his pickup at 6:45 on a Tuesday morning, checked the side mirror out of habit, and pulled out of the narrow Brooklyn street where his repair shop occupied the ground floor of a converted warehouse. The sky was that particular shade of pale gray that comes before the city fully wakes up, and the traffic on the bridge was still light enough that he could see the East River clearly below. Mia sat in the seat beside him, 6 years old. Her red fox stuffed animal, she called it, Rusty tucked firmly under one arm. She had her mother's habit of waking up completely alert. No groggy transition, just eyes open and already asking questions. "What's your favorite car in the whole world?" she asked, adjusting Rusty's ear with the focused seriousness of someone arranging something important. Lucas thought about it for a moment, the way he always thought about Mia's questions, not quickly, because she always knew when an answer was rushed. "A car nobody's looked at the right way yet," he said. She nodded as if this made complete sense. She settled back in the seat and watched the bridge cables pass overhead, and Lucas kept his eyes on the road. 3 years earlier, Lucas had been a chassis engineer with a small but respected Formula Heritage racing team, a position he had earned not through connections, but through the kind of obsessive mechanical knowledge that makes other engineers too uncomfortable at dinner, because the conversation only ever goes one place. His father, Raymond Grant, had spent 40 years documenting the history of American racing manufacturers, and his particular fixation had been Callaway Racing, a short-lived Detroit company that had produced some of the most technically sophisticated factory prototype cars of the early 1960s, before a warehouse fire in 1965 had reportedly destroyed most of what they built. Raymond had talked about the GTR-0 the way other fathers talked about legendary fish they'd almost caught. The only factory prototype, the first one off the line, gone, probably, but not certainly. Lucas had grown up with that story the way other children grow up with fairy tales. His mother, Claire, had died in a traffic accident when Mia was 3 years old, and Lucas had left the racing team 6 months later, not because he couldn't handle the work, but because a paddock in Monaco and a 6-year-old in Brooklyn are not compatible in the way that matters most. He opened the repair shop. He learned how to pack school lunches. He kept his father's research binders on a shelf above his workbench. Today he was driving to the Upper East Side for a morning preview at a Hartwell Prestige estate sale, the kind of event where old money's furniture and forgotten collections get cataloged and sold. He wasn't there for the Patek Philippe watches or the Impressionist oils. He was there for anything mechanical, anything overlooked, anything in the back of the catalog that the main bidders would ignore. He parked the truck 2 blocks from the address, signed Mia into the complimentary care room that Hartwell provided near the main entrance, a small room with beanbag chairs and a television playing cartoons, kissed the top of her head, and walked through the tall front doors of the venue, with his flashlight in his jacket pocket and his father's voice somewhere behind his eyes. The main hall was high-ceilinged and already crowded with preview guests, all of them moving with the particular confidence of people accustomed to being in rooms where expensive things are displayed. Lucas moved along the edges, reading the lot tags methodically, pausing at a set of vintage tire-changing equipment and a crated collection of dashboard gauges from the 1950s. And then he turned the corner near the back wall and stopped. The car was pushed against the wall between 2 storage racks of framed artwork, half blocked by a rolling equipment cart, positioned as though whoever had placed it there had been actively trying to keep it out of the way. The paint, a dull olive green, was not original, not by decades. The bodywork was wrong for any production model he recognized. Modified or partially stripped, the fender lines altered. But underneath all of that, visible only if you knew precisely where to look, the proportions of the roofline were unusual, in a very specific way. Lucas crouched down and turned on his flashlight. He was still crouched there, angled beneath the driver's side door, when he heard footsteps stop nearby. He looked up. Giselle Hartwell was watching him with an expression that combined mild curiosity and something closer to impatience, the look of someone interrupted by a problem they didn't ask for. She was wearing a charcoal suit that had probably cost more than Lucas's monthly shop rent, and her junior appraiser, a younger woman with a clipboard, who Lucas would later learn was named Diana Walsh, stood a half step behind her. Giselle looked at the car, then at Lucas, then at the car again, with the brief, efficient appraisal of someone who has already decided. "This lot has no real value," she said, her voice carrying cleanly in the high-ceilinged room. "It's here as a courtesy to the estate family. We didn't want to refuse them." She paused, letting the silence settle, then added, with a small precision that landed exactly where she intended it to, "I'm not sure this preview is the right fit for certain budget ranges." A few of the other preview guests nearby glanced over. One or two almost smiled. Lucas did not stand up immediately. He looked at the car for another 2 seconds, the flashlight still in his hand, and then he stood and met Giselle's eyes without any particular expression. "Thank you for letting me know," he said. She moved on. Lucas turned back to the car and looked at the firewall through the gap behind the fender. Diana Walsh lingered for a moment, not obviously, just a beat longer than she needed to, and when Lucas glanced at her, she looked away first. A man in a black suit appeared briefly at the edge of the hall. Heavy set, Rolex on the wrist, the easy movement of someone who spent a great deal of time in rooms like this and had stopped noticing them years ago. He was Jason Cole, a mid-level collector and dealer who had been buying and flipping specialty automotive lots for 2 decades. He looked at Lot 47 with the quick, practiced glance of someone sorting through a bin for something worth saving, found nothing that interested him, and moved on. Through the doorway to the care room, Lucas could see Mia standing at the threshold, Rusty under her arm, looking out at him. He gave her a small nod. She disappeared back inside. Lucas pocketed the flashlight and walked to the registration desk. The bidding room filled to about 60% capacity for the main session, and it thinned considerably. After the marquee lots, a collection of estate jewelry, and 2 significant paintings cleared in the first 40 minutes. Lot 47 was called near the end of the session, after the crowd had redistributed into smaller clusters of people checking their phones and finishing their coffee. The auctioneer, a Hartwell staff member filling in for the final stretch, announced it with the same brisk, neutral tone used for everything else. Asterisk, Lot 47, automotive item, estimated 5,000 to 8,000, sold as is, no warranty, no reserve, bidding opens at 3,000. Asterisk. 3,000 became 5,000 in the first 30 seconds, which surprised nobody. And then the room went quiet again, the way rooms go quiet when nobody particularly wants something. Lucas raised his paddle at 8,000. Jason Cole, positioned in a far corner with his arms crossed, noticed the bid and looked across the room for the first time with genuine attention. He raised his own paddle, 9,000, with the automatic reflex of a man who dislikes losing to anyone,